Okay, so
The date today is, do we need that?
24th of October
2009?
2009.
I got the right year.
So I wanted to start off by asking you about originally working with Carl Rogers and when that actually started, and both your impressions of him and also his impressions of your work with provocative therapy, which is obviously a big jump from what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, my impressions of him, I mean, I thought he was God in gray. You know, everything was gray. His suspenders were gray, his suit was gray. So we saw him in, I wrote up about that in my book, I think, Provocative Therapy. Frank Hughes, who was a buddy of mine, and Meg Sang, who was a buddy of ours, Frank wrote Carl, and he got some tapes, and we listened to those, and I thought, wow. We read Clandestine Therapy. Anyway, he was coming to Washington for a big psychological convention, stuff like that. So we picked him up. Frank said, we'll pick you up and drive you in. Could we have just a talk with you? Could we record it? I mean, he said, yeah, 1 hour, and that, because we're having some very interesting experiences with using your therapy with schizophrenics. And so he was about ready to start a big research project at Mendota in Madison, Wisconsin, Mendota Mental Health Institute. So he was interested in talking to us and getting our impressions, etc. And so we exchanged this and stuff like this and talked about it. And I was just utterly awestruck on this guy. And I got him laughing and sometimes, and I thought, huh, he's human also. The
What year was this?
This is June of 1958. You know. And no, it could have been, was it 56 or no, 58, that's right. Anyway, and we talked about our work with schizophrenics, and I mean, it's amazing. One of Frank's back wards, hopeless, psychotic, blah, blah, became patient of the month at so much change, you know, kind of in her. And I had a patient that went through a lot of changes and stuff like that. I couldn't believe this almost, but I went around and checked with the ward nurse and then the art therapist who said, what's going on with this patient and stuff. And so we all three got together and compared notes. And I told him, he thought that was, there was confirmatory evidence, which it's always good to get. At any rate, so we talked about that and other things and stuff. And one of the things he said, which boy, have I thought of this a lot of times. He said, well, you'll never make a dent on the old guard. It's the new ones coming along that you'll have your influence on and stuff. And I thought, yeah, he wasn't just kind of giving out with the law of the Medes and the Persians. He was saying he knew whereof he spoke, you know. Yeah. And the old guard, the orthodoxon, the vested interests, the thing, and you think, well, not in the field of psychotherapy. Oh yeah. At any rate, there was the number of other impressions I had of Carl Rogers. He was a great man, a certified great man. He had his impressions, and he was a guy, I mean, and so he had his limitations. And John Wayne said, a man has to recognize his limitations. Well, Carl did. Anyway, well, there's a lot I could talk about there, but I can't comprise it within 10 minutes. But it was a blessing knowing him.
What was his impression of your work?
This is interesting. One of the researchers in the project, Charlie Twix, the project, said he was one of the chief psychometrists and stuff, and he heard Rogers talking to a group of clinicians from Chicago, and he said, if I were a young man entering the field of psychotherapy today, I would be progressing along the lines that Frank Farrelly is doing therapy. And I said, what? You know, and I grilled him. I grilled him till finally he blew up. He said, God damn it, I told you what he said. That's what he said. I'm not adding, I'm not subtracting, I'm not coloring, I'm not. He said, quotes, and then he said, you know, he said that, and then close quotes. Now that's it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. So a year later, you know, immediately going to, I sat and thought, anyway, a year later I asked Carl about that. He said, I remember talking to that group, and I remember talking about you. I don't remember the exact words, but I'll buy what you said. I said, he swears that's exactly, word for word, what you said. He said, okay, I'll buy it, yeah. And I said, what did you mean by that? He said, putting more myself in there, you know. And so then he kind of started to develop his soliloquy kind of thing, you know. And he would tell clients and patients about this. But and then when I discovered provocative therapy in July of 1963, I talked to, I called him and told him, got a bit of this, got a bit of that. You know, he laughed. It sounds like an Irish stew, Frank. I tell you that he really had a gift for using the lingo, the imagery, the analysis of the person he was talking to. I mean, a gift. I don't know, talent, gift, etc. And but I was just very proud to have made his acquaintance, to have worked with him, and all that kind of stuff. One time, we had clinical meetings in his research project at Mendota, and each week, and then administrative meetings. So. And oh, what was it? Let me catch it through. I'm seeing all these different pictures and stuff like that. I started to say, I don't want to be a horticulturist, which is a analogy he used, and I don't want to be a midwife, in which he did. And Jean Genlin, with whom I was in therapy at that time, he says, well, and Carl just shushed him. Let Frank go with it. Don't put it in this. I said, I want to just pry apart the shells, these defenses of the schizophrenics, and penetrate through to the core of them and inject some life, and splayed my fingers out like that. And Alan Roberts, the chief psychologist at Mendota, said, "Oh, Frank, you're so phallic." And I said, "Well, no." And I said, "God damn it, I'm getting results, using this at any rate." And so they talked about it. And Carl was always supportive of it. I was kind of amazed because, unlike Freud, anybody who differed with him, get out, rouse, you're a heretic from the true believers. That's all I want around me and stuff. And I think he was so far from that. A little bit of a what the hell. Great men want, yes. But he was so, I just felt he was so, he was beyond supportive of it. I think he liked me, And so I went down to St. Louis, and my father, Irish patriot, said, I'm number 9 of 12 kids, 8 boys, 4 girls, and an Irish Catholic family. And he said, "Well, boy, how's it going?" It was never infantilized or anything. It was an affectionate term. And I said, "Well, pretty good, Dad." A world-renowned therapist said, in quotes, Frank Farrelly is one of the most creative young therapists I've ever met in my life. And I thought, well, my God. He said, "Did he offer you a job?" I said,